Ron DeSantis discussed demonstrations like this one at Harvard.
And I think what this terrorist attack in Israel has shown us is we're vulnerable from all the people that have come illegally because they have come from Iran, too. It's not just Mexico, Central America, Russia, China, Middle East, all that stuff. But I think what we also saw when the blood wasn't even dry on the Israelis who had been massacred, you had people in America going out protesting in favor of Hamas.
Yes.
And that's like very chilling.
Yes,
Some of these people are not U.S. citizens. They're student visas. So as president, if you're on a student visa and you're a foreigner and you're out there celebrating terrorism, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home.
Nice. Thank you. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Can he do that? Is that something?
You can do that. You bet you can. Yep, they're here at our pleasure. We don't have to have them here. We don't have to allow them here. And if they're doing things like that are seedy and despicable, sorry, you wore out your welcome. Go home. It's not like we're putting him in prison. We're just sending him home. Mm-hmm. Get on a plane and get your ass out.
I mean, it is fascinating in a very bad way to see how these students are acting and these professors. There's been one professor who's been out there shouting common sense, and he did this big rant. He's a Columbia professor. I think we have just an excerpt of his long rant that he shared in the public square.
This is fascinating because, hang on one second. It's a professor who is supporting Israel? I mean, that has to be noted because
Columbia.
it's the only one I know of. It's the only one I've seen or heard of.
A Columbia guy, yeah.
Here he is.
Last week, we had thousands of students chanting pro-terror songs that are sung right now in Iraq, in Libya, in Yemen, in Afghanistan. We're singing this not in Gaza, not in Afghanistan, here in New York City. And this is the school that you want to send your children to. They were celebrating the rape of teenage girls in a music festival in the name of resistance. They were celebrating this. And the president of the university is allowing these pro-terror student organizations to march on our campuses. They brought a building here of the Center for Jewish Life had to go on lockdown. Not in Gaza, not in Tel Aviv, here in New York City.
Yeah, crazy. That leads us to Bill Maher, who had some advice for young people here in this country on his show last week.
I have one piece of advice for the youth of America. Don't go to college. And if you absolutely have to go, don't go to an elite college, because as recent events have shown, it just makes you stupid.
Yep.
There are few, if any, positives to come out of what happened in Israel, but one of them is opening America's eyes to how higher education has become indoctrination into a stew of bad ideas, among them the simplistic notion that the world is a binary place where everyone is either an oppressor or oppressed. In the case of Israel, oppressors being babies and bubbas. The same students who will tell you that words are violence and silence is violence were very supportive when Hamas terrorists went on a rape and murder rampage worthy of the Vikings. They knew where to point the fingers at the murdered, and then it was off to ethics class. Now, I recognize that a certain amount of foolishness is expected of college kids, but mixing Jägermeister and tomato juice isn't the same as siding with terrorists. 34 student groups at Harvard signed a letter that said the apartheid regime is the only one to blame, proving they don't know what constitutes apartheid. They don't know much of anything, actually. But it doesn't deter them from having an opinion. They've convinced themselves Israel is the most repressive regime in history because they have no knowledge of history or even a desire to know it. And actual history doesn't come up in their intersectionality of politics and genderqueer identities class. Now, to be fair, at least 5 of the student groups have rescinded what they signed, saying they didn't read the letter closely. And they promised not to make that mistake again after they graduate and start running the world. But I actually believe them that they didn't read the letter closely. I think they scanned it, said it was blaming Israel, and went back to surfing TikTok. Because college life today is a day spa combined with a North Korean re-education camp. It's a daycare center with a meal plan, except the toddlers can fire the adults. The fact that college presidents, who usually love to speak out about anything, couldn't find their voice to condemn the worst attacks since the Holocaust says a lot about who really controls colleges.
Wow. I mean, that's Bill Maher. Bill Maher, one of the most liberal people in all of media. For years, for decades, he has been spewing BS that makes no sense. But lately, it just shows how radical the left is because they've gone too far for even Bill Maher. And one thing he does know is that these jihadists are evil. He gets that. He understands that. It seems to me that he even spoke out when. Do you remember when it was when Rosie O'Donnell said Christian militants are just as dangerous as Islamic jihadists? He took issue with that even, and so good for him for understanding that there's a limit to the things you can support, even on the left, at least for him.